So, here we go. Tom, tell me about your favourite game.
Well,
Mind games.
my favourite game is probably Bolt Action.
Yeah.
Far and away. I like the mechanic. The sort of like it doesn't have the I go, you go.
Yeah. Can you tell people about what that is?
Each unit in the game has a corresponding dice which goes into a bag, and then sort of each turn you take turns of pulling one of those dice. So sort of if you've got 10 units and your opponent's got 10 units, in theory, your opponent could have moved all 10 units before you move all 10 units, but that never happens. You know, they might move 2 or 3, and then you get to move 2 or 3 or whatever. Yeah. But it changes the dynamic of every turn, because if your opponent gets the early dice, they get to do a lot more early on. But then you can sort of reverse of that is you then get to do more. Whatever has survived has got to do a lot more later on in the turn, and your opponent isn't sort of free to react to that. And also, it's one of those games where it isn't. I don't think I've off the top of my head, I can't think of one of those games where you've known from turn one, I'm going to lose this.
Oh yeah.
Or you rock up and it's like there is nothing I can do to even get a draw out of this game.
Yeah.
I know some of us went to a team event last year, and it was sort of like a kill point game. I had, I think, 16 or 18 kill points, and my opponent had 6. And it was like, just because of how the game works, we're still able to sort of like pull off a draw.
Yeah.
Because the system sort of allows that. There is no sort of direct rock, paper, scissors. This is always going to kill this. This is always going to do that. So have some dice in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. It just creates because not every dice draw is created equally. You know, there are some where I really want to shoot your guys with my submachine guns, and you really want to shoot my guys with your submachine guns. Whoever goes first is probably going to get the upper hand in that little melee or combat that's going to follow. And other times it's like it doesn't really matter who goes next if our units are off the board or something. So it creates a lot of tension. And I like the way it changes the probabilities. You know, the more of my dice that come out of the bag, the more likely you are then to get one of yours. And it's a really good system. I'd recommend people try it out for other games as well, because that whole I go, you go, where I go first and I fire all my basilisks and I put all my pie plates out on your side, and there's nothing left.
It's impossible really to do an alpha strike.
I
would say it's impossible to do an alpha strike, but also it's a game that you can come back in. You can be having your absolute teeth kicked in, and have a third of what your opponent's got left.
Yeah,
and with some lucky dice rolls, you can still sort of pull it off. You never sort of feel completely out of it.
And I feel as well. There's the basic army rule books and the basic army books are all very level. Let's not talk about Tiger Fear. This isn't the time or the place to talk about Tiger Fear. We'll talk about that. Most of it is it's pretty even. You know, if you take a howitzer, a regular howitzer, medium howitzer in any army, it's going to be reasonably good in a game. You know, it's not that much difference between them. There's a few national tweaks here and there, and people discuss which is the best, but there's no real sort of codex creep where you're like, they do what now?
There is no real codex creep. It's a game. It's one of those games where even if you've played just 2 or 3 games with an army, you don't need the book anymore. You don't need to look at your army list. You also don't need the rule book, really. It's sort of like the rules are simple enough, really, unless it's a very strange situation. You don't really need the rules. And a big thing for me is there is only really one source of a reroll that lets you reroll a morale check once. There are sort of like no shooting or wounding rerolls, no like reroll bubbles or any of that bollocks.
It's like if you get a medic. Now listen to this, 40k players. If you put a medic in a unit, you get to roll a dice. If someone dies on a roll of a 6, they're not dead. 1 dice. Need to roll a 6. Not it's there's no that's the best feel no pain you're going to get in the in bolt action. Yeah, I really like it as a system. Anything else you like apart from the dice and the balancing?
I like how it has a relatively simple mechanic. I like the mechanic of how you work out the pluses and negatives for shooting.
Yeah.
So it isn't. There aren't sort of. So this is soft cover +1. Oh, this is hard cover +2.
Yeah.
It's long range. +1. I think it makes it much easier when you're setting up a game with your opponent and you just go, right, what's hard cover, what's soft cover, and you can just sort of point at it all, and then you're not sort of then having to like get laser pointers out and go, well, technically like the top of his left ear can see his right elbow. They don't get any cover for that.
Yeah. That's very true. And I like pins. The pins, it's a very good way of doing it because it's morale. He's being shot at. It kind of affects them. The more pins you have, the harder it is to shoot because you've been shot at. And it's sort of a good way to represent morale. It doesn't go from like we're fully functional to we're gone, which happens in a few games.
It's almost like in a way the best way to win the missions isn't to kill your opponent. It's just to sort of pin them out. And I also really like, personally, I like the number of models because it's bigger than a skirmish game, but you don't need 2 or 3 carry cases to sort of carry.
It's normally is a half K. For those who don't know, a half KR case. Those smaller ones that can easily carry an army and a tank in there.
Yeah, you're sort of looking at maybe 30, 40 infantry figures at the most, a tank, maybe an armored car, and some sort of like gun or howitzer. So it sort of easily fits in my bag to bring down the club after work. It's not like the English Civil War army that I brought down. Well, the one game that we played before lockdown was in sort of like 3 really useful boxes, and it's just a pain in the backside to transport. So the difficulty of transporting that will limit how often I play with it. It will be like an occasion game, an occasion army to play, because it's just not conducive to transport, which I suppose is the same for some of these big fancy models and like the bigger Titans and things.
Yeah.
They're such a pain to transport.
Yeah, that has to be. I mean, we're not playing, and we're playing at the club. I know. I do ask people like, how the hell do you transport that model? It's all got Waverly energy Waverly bits, like the 3D stuff that GW do, and I'm like, you must just be in a case by itself, But maybe it costs the same points as the whole army, so maybe that's fine. Anything else you want to tell me about bolt action?
Give it a go.
Let's speak to you about it. If anyone wants to play, come and talk to me or to Tom.
And also, it is, if you're thinking of starting a new game, it's a very cheap game.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it as a sort of an investment into a new 28mm army game, you can quite easily get an army that you would take to a tournament for 50 quid.
Yeah.
If you sort of look around, and for 100 quid, you get more than enough with all the toys that you can ever want.
Yeah. I did for a project. I did an army that cost me, and it was reasonably okay. There's a few bits I would have added in, but it cost me £19.50. Using the different sales that were happening, it was a Hetzer and some Germans, and it cost me £19.50 because they do a Black Friday sale, don't they? Every year with their sprue sales and half-price tanks and so on, and so I made a really good saving there and put together. So it's affordable. I spent more on a pizza than
and the other thing is with it being it's World War II 28mm, so there is dozens, if not hundreds, of manufacturers out there. So you can select what you want, and if you want to go the cheaper route, you've got things like Plastic Soldier Company, which do like a box of like 40 or 50 Russians for like next to nothing.
Yeah.
And then you have like the other end of the scale, you have like Empress, which do like beautiful models, but they're like a couple of quid each.
Yeah.
So it's like you have whatever you want in between. And also, while Bolt Action is a great game, there are also loads of other 28mm
Yeah.
25mm World War II games, they can always play things like Chain of Command, Iron Cross, all those sorts of things without any alterations. You just use the same armies.
Cool. Good. Thanks, Tom. What game do you fancy playing in the future?
I quite fancy some Team Yankee.
Yeah, no, I'm interested as well.
Quite fancy some sort of Team Yankee at the minute because I think it's possibly that sort of like cross between the sort of the historic stuff, but also the bit more of the fantasy because like it isn't historical.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
I got a hankering for that. Maybe it's my age showing, but a hankering for some Cold War action. Let's just recreate. Or was it Red Dawn? Was it Red Dawn?
Red Dawn. Watched a documentary on the Soviet experience in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I think they'd obviously sort of like watched a lot of Top Gun and that sort of thing. So there's sort of a lot of like sort of 8-wheel APC with the aviators on out the top sort of action, which sort of giving me an inkling to play that.
Yeah, looks good. Anything else you want to play, or that's just for the moment?
Also, I think sort of probably next year going to look at sort of maybe playing some Napoleonics and sort of get my full sort of nerd gamer card in.
Yeah. I hopefully get a few games of English Civil War done as well. I think we have to roll English Civil War over to next year as well. We only got the one game in before lockdown, so maybe that'll be next year as well.
Yeah, I think the plan was to sort of have it finished off by September, wasn't it? So I think it will. Yeah. I think I don't think a bolt action event at the club will be happening this year.
Yeah.
So I think we will just have to sort of, hopefully, as soon as we can start rolling dice again, sort of make up for lost time.
Absolutely.
Civil War and see what happens. At the moment, any gaming in person would be good. So I just want to see my friends and
see everyone. I miss it. I want to have a beer and just sterilize hands and shake everyone's hand and say hello to everyone because I miss seeing everyone at the club. I miss you all so much. I do.
Likewise.
So this rolls nicely into what's your favourite club memory? That's a tricky one. I know there's probably so many. Don't worry. What I say is I'll ask you, what's one of your favourite club memories? Because that leaves it open for you to remember other things later on. Because I'm sure you can't remember all of them right now.
I wouldn't say any one specific memory sort of jumps out. It just, when I think of the club, just makes me happy, and just thinking about the club sort of makes me happy. And sort of trying to be positive, and I think sort of the standout things that sort of spring to mind really are. At the time, there were sort of sad events, but they were happy for sort of because it means we're all friends and sort of the connection. Like a lot of my sort of what's coming to mind with that question is like lots of things about James.
Yeah, no. Mr. Flowers.
And sort of don't want to go on a
sort
of a downer when we're trying to sort of be a bit positive. But that sort of really just reminds me sort of that, we are a gaming club and we meet every week or twice a week to play games, but we're more than that as well, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a gaming club is made up of members, isn't it? It's not the terrain, it's not the models, it's not the venue, it's the people that come together to play there. And some weeks I come and I just play the game of beer.
I would think probably by far the most frequent game I play. I just come down and hang out, and I think there's like a lot of people come down and know when people are busy or things might be going on in life, they don't maybe feel like gaming, but they'll still sort of come down and hang out. My best thing about the club would be you don't even have to come down and game. You just want to come and be in each other's company.
Yep, definitely. Right, let's take a quick break before we come back with the big, most important questions.
Final bit.